The silver hull of the Warbeast mothership gleamed against Earth's blue backdrop as it settled into orbit. Nobody had expected visitors from beyond our solar system, and certainly not these imposing beings who called themselves the Warbeasts. They stood nearly 8 feet tall with thick grey skin and amber eyes that seemed to calculate everything they saw. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho straightened his tie as he prepared to meet them. At 53, he had spent his life in diplomatic service, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Remember," his aide whispered, "show strength but not aggression." Kim nodded and stepped forward as the Warbeast delegation emerged from their shuttle. Their leader, who called himself High Commander, bowed slightly. "We bring greetings from the Vordani Empire," he said through a translator device. His voice sounded like stones grinding together. "Earth welcomes you in peace," Kim replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. The first meeting seemed productive. The Warbeasts shared limited information about their technology, offering what appeared to be goodwill gestures. They spoke of alliance possibilities and mutual protection, yet something felt off to Kim. In private meetings, he noted how the Warbeasts studied humans with cold detachment, like scientists observing lab rats. "They ask too many questions about our immune systems and genetic diversity," Dr. Park Ji-won pointed out during a debriefing session. As Earth's leading epidemiologist, her concerns carried weight. "It's not typical first contact protocol." 3. Weeks after the Warbeasts arrived, Colony Horizon, Earth's most distant outpost with 5,000 settlers, sent a distress signal. People were falling ill with symptoms nobody recognized. Blue veins spreading across the skin, followed by fever, then rapid organ failure. Park was among the first doctors sent to investigate. The scene that greeted her froze her blood. Entire families lay in hospital beds, their skin mottled with cobalt patterns. Children suffered the worst effects, their small bodies fighting hardest against whatever invaded them. "This isn't natural," Park told her husband over a secure channel that night. She'd been working 20 hours straight, her eyes red from exhaustion and tears. "The pathogen targets multiple genetic pathways simultaneously. It's engineered." Her husband's face paled. "You think the Warbeasts—" She couldn't say it outright. "The channel might be monitored," but she nodded slightly. Back on Earth, tests confirmed her suspicions. The disease contained artificial structures that couldn't have evolved naturally. More disturbing, surveillance footage showed Warbeast diplomats visiting water treatment facilities on Colony Horizon just days before the outbreak. The death toll climbed rapidly. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, each number representing families destroyed, children orphaned, parents left childless. When confronted with evidence, the Warbeasts didn't deny their actions. Instead, their High Commander addressed Earth's United Council with chilling indifference. "Testing potential adversaries is standard procedure," he explained, as if discussing weather patterns. "Your species showed interesting resistance patterns, better than most we've encountered. Some of your genetic lines lasted nearly 2 weeks before system failure." The council chamber erupted in outrage. Representatives shouted and wept. Kim Dae-ho, who had welcomed these creatures in peace, felt something break inside him. The High Commander raised a hand for silence. "Your emotional responses are noted but irrelevant. The tests reveal that while you possess interesting genetic diversity, your technological capabilities pose no threat to the Vordani Empire." Then came the message that would change humanity's path forever. "Your weakness has been noted. Prepare for integration or elimination. Your colony served its purpose in our evaluation. They weren't visitors. They weren't potential allies. They were conquerors who had already decided Earth's people were acceptable casualties in their expansion." As the Warbeasts returned to their ship, refusing further discussion, humanity faced its darkest hour. Families on Earth watched news broadcasts in horror, seeing the blue-veined victims on Colony Horizon. Parents held their children tighter, wondering if they would be next. That night, in research facilities across the globe, scientists like Park Ji-won didn't sleep. She stared into microscopes studying the pathogen's structure, tears occasionally falling onto her lab coat. "They think this makes us weak," she whispered, looking at photos of her nieces who had died on Horizon. "They think our grief and anger will paralyze us. She straightened her back and called her colleagues. "They've never met humans before," she said, determination replacing despair. "They have no idea what they've just awakened." The Warbeasts had made a critical mistake. They had tested humans with bioweapons, believing our response would be either surrender or futile resistance. They hadn't considered that humans pushed to the edge might push back with something far more dangerous than weapons: knowledge, determination, and the unique perspective of a species that had spent its entire existence adapting to survive. Lee. Sang-min hadn't slept in 36 hours. The lab around him buzzed with quiet, desperate energy as scientists from every corner of Earth worked side by side. His eyes burned as he studied the molecular structure displayed on his screen, but the image of his sister and her family kept him going. They had moved to Colony Horizon just 8 months ago, excited about a fresh start. Now they were just names on the growing list of victims. "I need more coffee," he muttered, rubbing his temples. A steaming cup appeared beside him. Dr. Bei's Sun-hee offered a tired smile. "Drink this instead. It's an herbal tea my grandmother used to make when we needed to stay alert." Sang-min nodded gratefully. Like everyone in the lab, Sun-hee had volunteered immediately when the call went out for researchers. Her specialty was evolutionary biology, which might prove crucial in understanding why the Warbeasts' pathogen affected humans the way it did. "Any progress?" she asked, glancing at his screen. "Maybe," he said, sipping the bitter tea. "Look at this protein structure. It's designed to bind with at least 15 different human genetic markers. The Warbeasts designed it to affect as many human genetic variations as possible." Sun-hee leaned closer. "That's both horrifying and fascinating. They must have gathered human DNA samples during those first diplomatic meetings." Across the room, Colonel Yun Tai-woo listened while speaking quietly with military officials on a secure line. Unlike most soldiers, Tai-woo had a background in biodefense. When news of the attack broke, he'd been called in to coordinate between scientific teams and defense forces. "We need more time," he was saying into his headset. "The scientists are making progress, but rushing them won't help. In the meantime, we need to evacuate civilians from potential target zones." The situation outside the lab was tense. People worldwide were panicking. Some fled cities, believing they'd be the next targets. Others gathered in angry protests, demanding immediate military action against the Warbeast ships still orbiting Earth. Military units were on high alert, but everyone knew conventional weapons might be useless against enemies with such advanced technology. Tai-woo ended his call and walked over to the science team. "What's our status?" Sang-min gestured to the complex molecular models floating on multiple screens. "We've fully mapped the pathogen's structure. It's unlike anything we've seen before, but there's something strange about it." "Strange how?" Tai-woo asked. Sun-hee jumped in. "It's too perfect, too clean. Look at natural pathogens. They're messy, with redundant features and random mutations. This is engineered to mathematical precision. There's no evolutionary history. Again, its structure." A researcher from India, Dr. Patel, who had been quietly working nearby, suddenly looked up. "That might be their weakness," he said. "Their bioweapon is sophisticated, but lacks the adaptability of naturally evolved organisms." This sparked something in Sang-min's mind. What if the Warbeasts themselves are the same way? They all look identical. What if they're clones? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "We need to confirm this," Tai-woo said. "If they're genetically identical, then they might all share the same vulnerabilities," Sun-hee finished. Teams worldwide were connected virtually, sharing their findings hourly. Reports from Tokyo indicated the pathogen broke down under specific radiation frequencies. Researchers in Nairobi discovered certain plant compounds that seemed to neutralize it. Each small victory brought renewed energy to the exhausted scientists. Meanwhile, in a secure underwater facility, Dr. Kang Hyun-woo was analyzing tissue samples retrieved from a dead Warbeast scout. The specimen had been recovered after a failed infiltration attempt at a military base in Australia. His findings sent shockwaves through the scientific community. The Warbeasts were indeed genetically identical, with DNA structures that showed clear signs of engineering. They had been created for war, their muscles denser than humans, their reaction times faster, their pain receptors minimal. But their immune systems were surprisingly simple, designed to fight only specific threats they might encounter in their home environments. They've never faced Earth's pathogens, Hyunwoo explained during an emergency video conference. And more importantly, they have no genetic diversity to help them adapt to new threats. For the first time since the attack, a glimmer of hope emerged. In living rooms and shelters across Earth, families huddled around screens, watching as United Council representatives addressed the world. They didn't reveal the scientific details, but their message was clear. Humanity was not giving up. Back in the lab, Sang-min stared at a new molecular structure taking shape on his screen. It was elegant and deadly, a counteragent specifically designed to target the Warbeasts' uniform genetic structure while leaving any other life form untouched. "This feels wrong," he whispered to Sun-hee late one night. "We're becoming like them, creating weapons of mass destruction." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "The difference is we're not testing it on innocent civilians, and we're designing it with an off switch. If they retreat, if they stop the attack, we don't have to use it." Tae-woo, overhearing them, nodded grimly. "We're fighting for survival, not conquest. That's what separates us from them." As dawn broke on the 30th day since the attack on Colony Horizon, humanity had transformed its grief into purpose. The Warbeasts had expected surrender or futile resistance. Instead, they had awakened something they couldn't understand, a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history adapting, surviving, and turning weaknesses into strengths. This'o counterweapon was nearly ready. The question now was how to deliver it, and whether humanity could maintain its moral compass even when fighting for its very survival. The emergency council chamber was silent as Dr. Kang Hyun-woo stood before the 60 representatives from Earth's nations. Dark circles hung beneath his eyes, evidence of weeks without proper rest. Behind him, a holographic display showed a rotating molecular structure, beautiful in its complexity, yet terrifying in its purpose. "Their bioweapon is sophisticated but fundamentally flawed," he explained, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. "The Warbeasts are genetically identical, clones optimized for warfare but with minimal immune variation." He tapped a control panel, and the display split to show two DNA sequences side by side. On the left is a sample of human DNA. Notice the variations, the unique markers that make each of us different from one another. Our genetic diversity is our greatest strength. It's why some people survived longer than others when exposed to their pathogen. He gestured to the right side. "This is Warbeast DNA from the specimen we recovered. Every sample we've tested is identical, down to the last base pair. They've engineered themselves for physical perfection, but sacrificed the diversity that allows for adaptation." Councillor Choi Yuna leaned forward. At 72, she was the oldest member of the Emergency Council, respected for her calm wisdom during crises. "You've created a counteragent that targets their uniform genetics?" Kang nodded grimly. "We have." The room erupted with questions and concerns. Some representatives demanded immediate deployment. Others worried about the ethical implications. "Please," Kang raised his hands. "Let me explain how it works." The room quieted as he continued. "The counteragent is designed to attack a specific sequence in the Warbeast genome, a sequence not found in any Earth life form. Once introduced to a Warbeast system, it will multiply rapidly, causing high fever and temporary nervous system shutdown." "Temporary?" asked a representative from Brazil. "You mean it won't kill them?" "That's correct," Kang replied. "At least, not in its current form. We've deliberately engineered it with a self-limiting feature. After approximately 72 hours, it burns itself out, leaving the host weakened but alive." A military general spoke up. "Why not make it lethal? They showed us no such mercy." The room fell silent again. It was the question many were thinking, but few wanted to ask aloud. Dr. Park Ji-won, who had been sitting quietly at the back of the room, stood up. As one of the first doctors to treat victims on Colony Horizon, her opinion carried significant weight. "Because then we become exactly what they think we are, savages worthy only of conquest or elimination," she said simply. Our humanity is not a weakness to discard when convenient. It's the very thing we're fighting to preserve. The general nodded reluctantly, acknowledging her point. Councillor Choi spoke again. How do we deliver this counteragent? Their ships remain in orbit just beyond our reach. This was the question Kang had been dreading. The science team had created the weapon, but delivery was the military's domain. He turned to Colonel Yoon Tae-woo, who stepped forward. We have a plan, Tae-woo said, but it's high risk and requires volunteers who may not return. In a secure room beneath the council chamber, he laid out the details to a smaller group of military and scientific leaders. The plan involved a stealth team infiltrating a smaller Warbeast outpost they had established. On Earth's moon, the team would release a non-lethal version of the counteragent, demonstrating their capability without causing mass casualties. It's important they understand we could kill them all, but are choosing not to, Tae-woo explained. This gives them a chance to withdraw peacefully. Back in the lab, teams worked around the clock to prepare both versions of the counteragent, the demonstration version and, if needed, the full deployment version. The work was painstaking. Even a small error could render the agent ineffective or worse, cause it to mutate unpredictably. Lee Sang-min barely left his workstation, checking and rechecking the molecular structure. The memory of his sister drove him forward, but so did something else. The knowledge that his work might prevent other families from experiencing similar loss. "Hey, you need to rest," Dr. Bae Sun-hee told him, placing a sandwich beside his computer. "You're making small errors. Look." She pointed to a series of calculations where fatigue had indeed caused him to make a mistake, one that might have gone unnoticed with devastating consequences. "Just 4 hours," she insisted. "I'll wake you if anything changes." Reluctantly, he agreed, collapsing onto a cot in the corner of the lab. His dreams were troubled, filled with images of blue-veined victims, and his sister's face asking him not for revenge but for justice. When he awoke, something had changed in the lab. There was a new energy, a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Sun-hee was smiling for the first time in weeks. "We did it," she said simply. "Final tests confirm the counteragent works exactly as designed. Both versions. Across the world, similar breakthroughs were happening. Teams in Kenya perfected the delivery mechanism, microscopic drones that could release the agent into Warbeast environments without detection. Engineers in Japan created stealth technology that might allow a small ship to approach the lunar outpost undetected. In a secure facility, Captain Jang Min-ho and his team trained relentlessly for the mission. They knew the risks. If caught, there would be no rescue. But like everyone involved in the project, they were driven by something stronger than fear. 5 weeks after the attack on Colony Horizon, humanity had transformed from victims to defenders. The counterweapon was ready. The delivery team was prepared. Now they faced the ultimate question, a question that would test not just their science but their souls. Could they use a weapon similar to the one that had caused them such pain? And if they did, could they maintain the restraint that separated them from their attackers? As the final preparations were made, Dr. Kang looked at the molecular structure one last time. "Let's hope they're wise enough to understand the message." "We're sending," he said quietly. "This isn't just a weapon, it's a choice." The stealth ship Nighthawk drifted silently through space, its experimental cloaking technology masking it from Warbeast sensors. Inside, Captain Jang Min-ho checked his team's equipment one final time. 6 people, the best Earth had to offer, sat strapped into acceleration chairs. None spoke. They were conserving energy and focus for what lay ahead. 5 minutes to lunar approach, the pilot announced quietly. Min-ho nodded and looked at Han Ji-eun, the team's biologist. Her hands cradled a sealed container, holding humanity's counterweapon. Though only 32, she had become one of the world's leading experts on the Warbeast pathogen and the counter-agent they'd developed. "Any second thoughts?" he asked her privately over their comm channel. Ji-eun shook her head. "I lost my brother on Horizon, but that's not why I'm here." She touched the container gently. "I'm here because someone needs to show them we're not what they think we are." The lunar outpost appeared on their screens, a dome-shaped structure with several smaller buildings connected by enclosed walkways. Intelligence suggested it housed approximately 200 warbeasts, a small research team by their standards. "Remember," Minho told his team as they prepared for landing, "we're not assassins, we're messengers." Their ship touched down in a crater 3 kilometers from the outpost, the lunar dust settling around them in the airless environment. In their specialized suits, the team moved across the grey landscape with practiced precision, their steps light in the low gravity. Bypassing the outpost's external sensors proved easier than expected. The warbeasts, confident in their technological superiority, had grown careless, or perhaps they simply couldn't imagine humans mounting any meaningful response to their attack. "Arrogance," whispered Park Tae-jun, their tech specialist, as he disabled a sensor array. "That's their second weakness." At the maintenance airlock, they encountered their first real challenge. The warbeast security system required genetic confirmation, a drop of their blood, to grant access. "They never considered we'd get this far," Tae-jun said, examining the security panel. "They didn't bother with anything more sophisticated." From his pack, he removed a vial containing warbeast genetic material, collected from the scout their forces had neutralized on Earth. One drop on the sensor, and the airlock hissed open. Inside, the team moved through dimly lit corridors. The interior architecture was angular and utilitarian, with none of the art or personal touches that would mark a human habitat. Everything served a function. Nothing existed for beauty or comfort. They encountered their first warbeasts near what appeared to be a laboratory. 3 of the tall, grey-skinned beings were examining holographic displays showing data about their bioweapons' effects on human subjects. Minho felt a surge of anger, seeing casualty statistics treated as mere research results, but he pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't about revenge. Using neural disruptors, non-lethal weapons developed specifically for this mission, they silently incapacitated the warbeasts without raising an alarm. "Life signs stable," Ji-eun confirmed, checking readings on her wrist device. "They'll wake with headaches, nothing more." The team proceeded to the environmental control room. According to their intelligence, this was where they could introduce the counter-agent into the outpost's air circulation system. 2 more warbeasts were neutralized along the way. When they reached the control room, Tae-jun got to work bypassing security, while the others stood guard. Minutes stretched like hours as his fingers moved over alien controls. "I'm in," he finally announced. "Ready for the package." Ji-eun stepped forward, opening her sealed container. Inside was a device that looked deceptively simple. A metal cylinder, no larger than her hand. It contained billions of microscopic delivery particles, each carrying the counteragent. "Once released, how long until full effect?" Minho asked. 2 hours for initial symptoms, 4 for full incapacitation, she replied, carefully connecting the cylinder to the ventilation system. "They'll experience fever, disorientation, and eventually temporary paralysis. Nothing permanent." With a soft hiss, the counteragent entered the outpost's air supply. On her tablet, Ji-eun watched as sensors confirmed dispersal throughout the facility. "It's done," she said quietly. "Now we deliver the message." In the outpost's communication center, they found what they needed: a data crystal compatible with Warbeast technology. Onto it, they loaded their prepared message, along with evidence of how the counter-agent had been developed and deployed. The message was simple. This was mercy. "You have 48 hours to leave our system." They placed the crystal where it would be found once the warbeasts recovered, then began their extraction. As they moved through the corridors, they could already see the first effects taking hold. Warbeasts were rubbing their temples, looking confused. Some stumbled against walls, their perfect balance failing them. One locked eyes with Minho as the team passed. There was something new in that amber gaze, something the captain had not seen during any previous encounter with the species. Fear, not of dying, but of something perhaps more terrifying to a race engineered for battlefield supremacy. Being rendered helpless by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The team reached their ship without incident and departed the lunar surface. As they cleared the moon's orbit, they watched the outpost through their sensors. Life signs remained stable, weakened, but not extinguished. "Do you think they'll understand what we've done?" asked Kim Hee-jin, their weapons specialist. "That. We could have killed them all, but chose not to." Min-ho looked at the lunar outpost growing smaller on their screens. "I hope so, but either way they now know we're not defenseless." As Nighthawk returned to Earth, the team maintained communication silence. Each was lost in private thoughts. They had struck a blow without taking a life, a demonstration not just of scientific capability, but of moral choice. Back at Mission Control, tension hung in the air as they waited for the stealth ship's return. When confirmation of the mission's success came through, there was no cheering, no celebration. Instead, a quiet, determined resolve settled over the assembled scientists and military personnel. Now they would wait for the Warbeasts' response. Would they recognize the message for what it was, a chance to avoid further conflict? Or would pride drive them toward a confrontation that neither side truly wanted? As Captain Jang Min-ho stepped from his ship into the embrace of Earth's gravity, he wondered if the Warbeasts had the capacity to understand what they had just witnessed, not weakness, but strength. The strength to show restraint even when provoked beyond measure. He hoped they were wise enough to understand. The alternative would force humanity to make a much darker choice. The 48-hour deadline came and went with no response from the Warbeasts. In command centers across Earth, military leaders and civilian authorities waited, hoping their demonstration had made an impact. Satellite systems tracked activity around the lunar outpost, confirming that the Warbeasts had recovered from the counteragent and resumed operations. Still, they made no move to communicate. On the morning of the third day, long-range sensors detected movement in the outer solar system. The Warbeast mothership had been joined by 5 additional vessels, each larger than any spacecraft humans had ever built. "They've called for reinforcements," Colonel Yoon Tae-woo said grimly as he studied the tactical display. "They've made their choice." President Ryu Soo-jin, a former teacher who had never imagined leading humanity during its greatest crisis, looked older than her 60 years as she addressed the Emergency Council. "We gave them a chance for peace. They've chosen war. The question now is whether we use the full counteragent." The debate was brief but intense. Some argued that using a biological weapon, even in self-defense, crossed a moral line humanity shouldn't cross. Others pointed out that the alternative was potential extinction. Dr. Park Ji-won, who had witnessed the suffering on Colony Horizon firsthand, spoke last. "I took an oath to do no harm," she said, her voice steady. "But sometimes the greatest harm comes from inaction. We designed this agent to be proportional. It won't kill them unless they force a confrontation. The choice remains theirs." After a unanimous vote, the order was given. Production facilities worldwide had been manufacturing the counteragent for weeks. Delivery systems were prepared and loaded onto every available spacecraft. Unlike the demonstration version, this counteragent was designed to spread more aggressively, transmitted through even minimal contact between Warbeasts. Commander Shin Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the EDS Defender, Earth's newest and most advanced military vessel. Though impressive by human standards, it was dwarfed by the approaching Warbeast fleet. "All ships report ready, Commander," his tactical officer reported. Do-hyun nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. "Begin Operation Immunization." Around the world, people gathered in homes and shelters, watching broadcasts of what might be humanity's last stand. Parents held children close, partners linked hands, strangers offered comfort to one another. Humanity faced its darkest hour together. The Warbeast Armada entered Earth's orbital space with weapons charged, broadcasting a single message across all frequencies. "Your resistance is noted. Your demonstration was impressive but futile. Surrender now for integration into the Vordani Empire, or face elimination." Earth's response came not in words but in action. From hidden positions around the Moon and Mars, smaller craft launched missiles containing the counteragent. The warheads weren't designed to explode with destructive force, but to disperse their microscopic payload near the Warbeast ship's air recycling intake systems. The Warbeasts, expecting conventional weapons, were caught unprepared. Their advanced shields, designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles, did nothing against the microscopic particles that infiltrated their life support systems. For 6 tense hours, Nothing seemed to happen. The Warbeast ships maintained formation, weapons still targeted on major Earth cities. Then gradually their movements became erratic. Communications between their vessels grew confused, then frantic. In command centers across Earth, intelligence, officers translated and analyzed the Warbeast transmissions. They're experiencing the symptoms, one reported. They don't understand what's happening. The first Warbeast ship broke formation after 12 hours, its navigation clearly compromised. The second followed shortly after. By the 18th hour, all 6 vessels were drifting. Their systematic attack formation dissolved into chaos. At the 24-hour mark, the Warbeast flagship transmitted a new message. "What have you done to us?" President Zhou spoke directly to the Warbeast High Commander, her image transmitted to the alien fleet. "We've done exactly what you did to Colony Horizon, with one critical difference. We've given you a choice. The agent affecting your people will run its course and fade naturally if you leave our solar system. Stay, and your symptoms will worsen." Hours passed with no response. Then, slowly, the Warbeast vessels began to reorient themselves away from Earth. One by one they engaged their propulsion systems and moved toward the outer solar system, all except the flagship. "They're staying," Do Hyun reported to the president, either out of pride or disbelief. For another 48 hours, the flagship remained in Earth orbit, its systems increasingly erratic. Finally, a single shuttle departed from the larger vessel and requested permission to land. Under heavy security, 3 Warbeasts, visibly weakened by the counter-agent, were escorted into the United Council chamber. Their commander, once imposing and arrogant, now moved with careful, pained steps. "How did you do this?" he demanded, his translator conveying the mixture of anger and bewilderment in his voice. "You were meant to be primitive, an easy conquest." President Zhou regarded him calmly. "We are not what you thought we were. Our strength isn't just in our weapons or technology, but in our diversity and adaptation." She gestured to the scientists and military personnel gathered in the chamber, people of every ethnicity, from every continent who had worked together to save their world. "Each of us is different," she continued, "each human genome unique. It makes us resilient in ways you can't understand. Your perfect uniformity made you vulnerable to our countermeasure, just as our diversity made some of us resistant to your bioweapon." The Warbeast commander seemed to deflate further. "The Vordani Empire has conquered 500 worlds. None have ever turned our methods against us. None have been human," Dr. Kang Hyunwoo said simply. The negotiations that followed were brief. The Warbeasts agreed to withdraw completely from the solar system and to provide the cure for their original bioweapon, saving the remaining survivors on Colony Horizon. Earth demanded and received reparations, along with recognition of human space as sovereign territory, off-limits to future Vordani expansion. As the Warbeast shuttle departed to rejoin their flagship, Lee Sang-min watched from a viewing platform, thinking of his sister and the price humanity had paid for this victory. "Do you think they've really learned their lesson?" asked Dr. Bae Sun-hee, standing beside him. Sang-min considered the question carefully. "I think they've learned that we're dangerous opponents. Whether they've learned anything deeper depends on their capacity for growth." He turned to face her. "But we've learned something too." "What's that?" "That what makes us human, our differences, our adaptability, even our compassion, these aren't weaknesses. They're the source of our greatest strength." As the Warbeast fleet disappeared into deep space, humanity began the long process of healing. Colony Horizon would be rebuilt. The dead would be mourned. But Earth had faced its first interstellar threat and emerged not just surviving but victorious. The stars would remember and spread the word, never test humans with bioweapons. The consequences might be more than you bargained for.